Sacred ground here, brothers and sisters. Let's understand, why is that boat there? That boat was a spiritual, symbolic boat to symbolically to take Khufu back to the celestial now. What was the purpose of the celestial now? What you see behind me is not a spaceship that landed and happened and didn't make it back. Okay. What you see right there is the boat of Khufu. That is his solar boat. This boat is 140 feet long, longer than Captain Cook's boat. When this boat was excavated in 1954 in a pit, over 1,200 pieces, the boat was dismantled. And they reconstructed, took 1,200 pieces to reconstruct this boat of Khufu. Now, what was the purpose of this boat? This boat was called the Nuank. What is the Nuank? What was the Nuank? The flooding of the Nile was called the Nuank. Now, when the Nile flooded, it was Khufu who realized that he could take his solar astral journey through the Nile to the celestial Nile. That was the Milky Way, to take him back to his father, Asar. So the Milky Way was looked at as the celestial now, like the earthly now. So it was the Nuank that took him back. That was the purpose of his boat. That later it was corrupted into Noah's Ark. Noah's Ark was taken from the Nuank. This is where it came from. Nowhere are you going to find no Noah's Ark. If you were back at the time of 4,000 years ago, or during the time of Khufu, and you asked him about Noah, boy, what's wrong with you? Know nothing about no Noah. You see my boat here? This is where the story came from. The flood, the great flood. There were many floods. There was the flood of Zoser. It was Zoser during the time when he commissioned to Khnum and to Upper Kemet to let the flood waters of the Nuank come back to flood the land, because here you see the drought took place, and Khnum said, you have not given recognition to your homeland, the south, Upper Egypt. And then we see Khnum let the flood waters open up. This is where we get the story. This information is not given to no one here but you, because you got a whole different reason for being back here. And that is to tell the truth. We want the truth and nothing but the truth. That's what we want here. You see? It's a new day. Something is opening up here. It's a spiritual consciousness. So you are looking at the Nuank, where the Noah's Ark came from. The Nuank. That's the origin. Now they got it encased in this casing here. That boat was a spiritual, symbolic boat to symbolically to take Khufu back to the celestial now. What was the purpose of the celestial now? The celestial now symbolically took him back to his spiritual father and first father, that was Asar. So here you see the inundation of the Nile connected with the Milky Way. This was called the Nuank. The flooding of the Nile was called the Nuank. And that was the purpose of Khufu's boat, was symbolically and spiritually was to take him back to his spiritual father. And that was during the inundation. So when the Nuank took place, that spiritually told us that we would connect to the Milky Way, that Nuank was corrupted to Noah's Ark. We got the boats, brothers and sisters. Here's the boat right here. If you went back to over 4,000 years ago in the fourth dynastic period and asked Khufu about Noah, boy, what's wrong with you? I don't know nothing about Noah. Here's my boat right here. Here's all the animals of the world doing the number 1, number 2, and everything. They just tell us any kind of stories. That's why they can only give you a picture of the story. But yet this flood was supposed to have taken place because we are told that God in the Bible said that he was tired, that because in Genesis chapter 1 through 6, the sons of God married the daughters of men. Is that right? This is where we were at fault in Kemet, because we married foreign women on our African throne. Although we would never marry none of our own to the foreigners, because they were goddesses. Here, during the 5th dynasty, this African king is called Sahara. Now, here's the first time that we get a concept called Sa-Ra. Sarah means the son of God. They were the sons of God in Kemet, marrying the daughters of men onto the throne of Kemet. This is where you get the concept in Genesis chapter 1, where the sons of God married the daughters of men, was taken from ancient Kemet. Brothers and sisters, here we have holy texts, holy writings. We've gone into Unis's pyramid. We've gone into Teti's pyramid. Spiritual writing when the Sahu, the spiritual body, astral projected. This is long before biblical text was even in existence.
For many years, I've taken groups back on our Kemet New Know Thyself educational tour, back to the land of Kemet, now called Egypt today in the northeastern part of Africa, to see an eyewitness account where many of the Western world's Judeo-Christian concepts were literally taken from the temples and tombs of Kemet. Let's go to the tomb of Teti to see some of these first religious concepts carved in stone.
They kept Teti closed for years. That's what they do. They close stuff and open stuff. As we mentioned to you, this is the pyramid of Teti. And although you see it in the dilapidated state at this particular period, they did not make the solid stone pyramid that you saw in the Giza Plateau at this particular time. Instead, they filled it in with a equilateral casing, but inside it was mainly rubble. But so through the dilapidation of the pyramid, you can see that the inner casing was mainly a rubble. But although it looks like this on the outside, it still is preserved on the inside, telling of the Makaru that I was mentioned to be truth of words to make the spiritual ascension into the spiritual realm. And this is the first spiritual, as they call today, religious text. This is the prototype of it all. That's what we're going to witness down here on the ancient. At this particular period of the 5th and 6th dynasty, these are the only pyramids that actually have writing on the walls. That's why it's called pyramid text, okay? Because at this time it has the writing. If we have gone into the Great Pyramid of Khufu or Akhet Khufu, you have no writing. When we go into Sneferu's pyramid, there is no writing. Only until we get into the 5th dynasty, 6th dynasty, like Unis and Teti, and during that period, we actually have the writing. You're coming down to see the earliest spiritual writing. When people say the Bible, the point is that that's why it says in the King James Version, diligently compared and revised. But revised to what? You have to come all the way to the pyramid text and coming forth by day and by night, where these spiritual writings were written long before King James, long before the New Americanized Version, long before the Septuagint version and all these other various versions. This is where the earliest spiritual writing is at. So we're going to go, I have to bend down a little bit, and we're going to come up in the chamber of Teti. Just a slight bend, you'll be okay. So you are down into Teti's pyramid of the 6th dynastic period. As I said before, the difference of the old kingdom pyramids that you saw at the Giza Plateau, that you're equally going to see in Dajor, is that those pyramids have no medunet, no writing. But during the 5th and the 6th dynasty, we see the writing, what is known as the pyramid text. This is where the pyramid text came from. This is the prototype of the earliest religious writing. Without this, Kemet would not have Per-em-Haru coming forth by day and by night. You would not have a Torah. You would not have a Bible, and you would not have a Quran. This is the origin of the earliest spiritual writing. We're talking about this pyramid is actually a book in stone. So this is a book in stone about how Teti, you see his Shenu. We know it's Teti because we see the 2 T's. That loaf-like figure is a T, and the I, and the royal Shenu, also called the Ren, saying that this is about Teti's spiritual ascension into the Duat, or we know as the heavens today.